us know when we're live. Very good.
Might take a sec. She's not that. Oh, here we go. All right, we got it.
So, how can a lava lamp or a bunch of lava lamps give you the best cybersecurity? Will diamonds power your phone for the next 5,000 years? And can you actually copyright the beat to a song? Well, these and other questions we're going to be talking about tonight on the December edition, the very last Inventor Friday of 2024. I'm Don Skaggs, your host. With me tonight is Kelly Wright. Kelly, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're all about.
Sure. Kelly Wright with Beowulf Testing, and we do product testing. And I can delve into that more later.
Right. Cool, cool.
Interesting.
We also have with us tonight Drew Sutton. Drew, tell us about yourself. Who you are, what you got going
Most of that caused trouble. No, I do leadership coaching, and I do it for a number of different avenues, startups, corporate, middle management. So I'm just doing leadership coaching, and I have a big event coming up in January.
I heard you did.
Yeah.
We need to talk about that. Also with us tonight is Trevor Schrimmer.
Hi, yeah, so I'm Trevor with Apollo Automation. We're a Lexington-based hardware startup making home automation sensors and IoT products.
And we have a gift. I got a Christmas gift this year from Apollo Automation. And my own, okay, I'm on.
We get this one. This one's already open.
Oh, there we go. We'll get one that's already open. This is what it looks like in the package. So it's a Christmas tree. Can you hang this on your tree? Is this like an ornament?
Yeah, there's a hole on the
Okay.
top.
Oh, I am so putting this on the tree tonight. So you push this little button on the back and you push it again.
Hold down on
Hold down on it. Did I mess up?
it. There's a good chance I put the battery in.
Oh yeah, batteries and backwards. There you go.
Okay, number one, put the battery in right. So now we hit the button.
Hold it up high.
There you go.
Isn't that cool? So Trevor, tell us how this very cool Christmas ornament works. Because you all made these.
Yeah.
In like a month or something.
Yeah, so we wanted something fun to do for the holidays. We've been working hard with our
The
startup.
lights are stolen. Cool.
We've been working very hard and building our own product lineup. And so we wanted a fun way to give back to the local community. And so we came up with the idea for an annual Christmas ornament. So it's a cool kind of PCB design. It's techie. And we designed it, came up with a design, put our logo, there's a QR code on the back that shows our company's progress for the year. Like our first 3D printer that we acquired, and then all the way up to 8 3D printers now running 24/7. So it's a cool little year in review page. And it's could be for anybody. It comes with dumb firmware where you just push the button and it works. But it also has smart firmware that you can add to it that'll make it connect to the internet, and then you can control it and do automations.
Cool. Cool.
Yep. And all the proceeds from it are benefiting some local Kentucky charities.
Oh, how cool is that? All right. All right. Also with us tonight is Leo York.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be here. EP, copywriter, etc.
Extraordinary.
There we go.
And switching the cameras and making everything run like it's supposed to run is George Mulder.
Pushing the buttons here, helping out.
All right, good deal. All right, well, we have some. This is, I guess, this is our last thing we're doing in 2024, which is kind of neat, kind of interesting. We also have a lot of stuff coming up in January. Not gonna talk about it yet, but we've got some stuff coming up in the next few minutes. Yeah, I think you're gonna find it really interesting. So you want to keep up with that. You want to keep up with what's going on with us on our website. And our website is kyinventors.org. And you're going to find all kinds of cool things. We've still got some interesting information from our state fair endeavor this past year, which was really something. We had folks actually making products and selling products. They came up with the idea and they actually sold products to 750,000 people that came through the Kentucky State Fair. You can also become a member, find out what we're all about, see what's coming up. Oh, look, there's Inventor Friday. Oh, that's going on right now. So definitely check out our website, kyinventors.org. Sign up for alerts and what's going on because we've got meetings and workshops and things like this that's going on all the time. So definitely check that out and support us. If you want to be a member, actually, you can become a member with 2024 prices right now. And as I say every year, to quote QVC, the prices for membership will never be as low as they are right now. So you want to definitely take advantage of that. Also, if you want to support what we do here, we have a giving page. So if you know someone who is interested, or maybe you that's interested in supporting what we do and the work we do at the Inventors Network Kentucky, then go to our giving page and help support what we do. So, all right, moving on. Also, if you live in a rural area of Kentucky, we've got some really cool new programs. So you definitely want to reach out to us for that. And our email, or just message us through our website, but our email is info@kyinventors.org. All right, on to innovations in history. So some interesting things happened in December. And one is that on December the 10th, 1997, Silicon Graphics created a hardware random number generator using photos of patterns of lava lamps. And let me pull that up because that is just pretty cool to take a look at. And that's right here. So they call it, actually now it's over at, they call it Lavaland. But also known as the Wall of Entropy, was a hardware random number generator designed by Silicon Graphics. And somebody else is doing this now. I thought maybe that would be on here. Cloudflare, thank you. Yes. So, we'll hear this from their site. Lava ran in production, the nitty-gritty technical details. Now, the cool thing about this is that it's a wall of lava lamps, and based on the position of the lava in the lamp, they're randomly generating, and you can't produce this with a computer. It's such a analog kind of a thing.
Well, true randomness is not, it's a computer is by nature not random.
Yeah.
Right.
So true randomness is only through analog.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I got excited.
No.
So actually, so there's a YouTube channel called Veritasium, I
I
think it is.
love that
Oh,
channel.
yeah.
But he does
Love
this
that.
really cool one on information. And he says, what's the minimum piece of information you can have? Turns out it's a bit, it's a yes or a no. And he goes, as he does, he kind of ambles through a story. It's a great story. But one of the punchlines is that, so like if you think about a video that's on a video screen, we can compress video by saying, if I don't tell you to change this pixel, don't change it. So I'm only giving you new information, and that's how we compress a video, right? So we think of compression, we think of information as something that we can know and we can predict, but actually information is randomness. So you start off and say everything's random, but then you notice a pattern, and then you say, okay, this pattern is not random. But then when you go through the compression algorithm, you wipe away all the stuff that's predictable. So the only things that's really information is actually randomness. Anyway, he does a better job of explaining it than I do. But you dig into the concept of randomness very deeply, and it gets super fascinating. And of course, the best application of randomness is Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, I know.
Leo, you got anything to say to that?
End all be all.
I used to do some,
Can't top that.
I used to do some simulation work with some guys over at Johns Hopkins. And we would get stuck on stuff and I'd be like, think that they managed this problem this way in Dungeons and Dragons. And everyone would be like, huh. And then somebody would be like, do you play?
I just want to say that to you.
I had an alarming number of people play. So actually, I didn't play, so then I had to learn it. Just so I could,
Wow.
because I felt like I was betraying people. Like I was like floating people and people were outing themselves. I was like, no, I care. So I play now as well.
So what do y'all think? Do you think that there's other opportunities out there? Find this analog solutions in a digital world, maybe, or what do you think, Kelly?
Yeah, I certainly think so. I remember doing a kids science fair, and one of the kids there was talking about using voice as a random generator, because even saying the same thing with the same intonation, there's slight variance that you can pick up on. And so using that as random generation. So I think there are possibilities out there, and maybe it's the younger minds too that are going to look for those solutions because they're not locked into the ways that we do things yet.
You know, we see that with inventors so many times because it's like we get the creativity drummed out of us in school or something, where it's like, but you go back, and sometimes we'll like work with high schoolers and middle schoolers.
Yeah.
Middle schoolers are the best. I mean, they are just like out there. It's like, okay, there are no rules. Let's just find out what we can find out. And it's some of the most creative kids I've seen are from middle school, elementary school.
Yeah, I do think it is very interesting because they're not bound by like what's possible in manufacturing or, you know, what's practical in terms of costs and things like that. Like it is very interesting. Kids' ideas, they can just like come up with any idea for a product or whatever and have no like all of the restrictions that we do now.
Right.
None of that teacher in the back of your head saying, well, no, you can't do that because.
But I really like that you can't do that because you get information from that. It's not physically possible because of this. Okay, well, what about this? And with each iteration of your crazy thoughts, which, you know, they tend to happen, you kind of iterate and you learn how to make something that is going to function. So I think like that's the thing that would be great to teach innovators in this network and kids in school is how to look at every no as a no but, and it's that next step. Like everything's a stepping stone to learning and to getting better. And it, you know, I don't know how you always teach that. Throw something really random at them. That tends to help.
But that's a great point because most of, and I think that's where we get stopped when we get older, is we say, no, you can't do that because of this. And then, okay, well then I guess we won't do this at all. Let's not even try.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is, okay, we can't do it this way. How can we do it?
Right.
And I think that's it, because I mean, every startup I've ever worked with has been like, okay, it's, you know, the first year it's like one dead end after another dead end after another dead end. And it's like the ones that don't say game over, those are the ones that end up being successful, but they're never successful with how they first envisioned how they were going to be successful.
Right.
They kind of look back and sort of laugh at, you know, what was I thinking back then?
Yeah, I think that's like a very key attribute for an inventor or an entrepreneur is just that persistence to like keep pushing forward. Because we always get reminded of that on our circuit boards. We put a version number that's like a true from the day we had the idea version number. And our first product, its version number was like 48. So it was like 48 different PCB designs that we had gone through to make it work and to get into the form factor that we wanted. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you just got to keep pushing through it.
I love that. So you put a number on it.
Yeah.
This is the iteration of this product.
Sometimes you get proud, and this is version 2 of our Christmas tree. So 2 tries to get our Christmas tree, but very simple device.
So what I ran into when I was at Bell helicopter is you're always designing, you have carbon fiber, you have glass or fiberglass, you have steel, you have aluminum, you have a bunch of glue, and they all have a bunch of different properties, and you're mashing them together to make a rotor blade, right? So we would get people from production who didn't understand the complexities of that problem. And we had this internal, it's kind of like LinkedIn, it's like a social media, this is like 2010. So like
Okay.
they were trying to capture the collaboration of a social, this is before Slack.
I was gonna say Slack.
Yeah, so it's Slack before Slack, yeah. But my job, one of my jobs was to answer the random ideas that were thrown at us from the factory floor. And so what I found was I was constantly re-answering the same question because people would be like, why don't we just do this? And because they hadn't put in the time to understand the basic math behind it. And I think it's very romantic to say, oh, we need everybody's ideas. You don't need everybody's ideas. Now, the people that have put in the time to understand the problem, they have really interesting ways to come at the problem. And the people that are like on the periphery of the problem, like if you're in engineering, production, and if you're in production, supply chain, like people that are tangential generally have great perspectives. But I think that we do a disservice when we just tell everybody, they're like, oh no, everybody's idea is great. Everybody's idea is not great. Not great. Because we already know the answer to most of those questions. So let's learn the answers so that we can be, because if you haven't done the basic research to understand the question, then you're essentially a 1500s inventor, and you've invented something. I tell my son this all the time. I'm like, he'll be like, I have this idea. I'm like, yep, that's called a whatever. And he's like, dumb. I'm like, no, you're a 13-year-old who just discovered this new thing. But we also discovered that in 1300. So let's take the advantage of all the things that humanity has learned on this question, and then let's spend all of our discovery time on the edge of the question, not relearning the stuff in the middle of the question. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's a hit to some people's ego. But anyway, I'm just saying I've answered a lot of the same questions for people that were very impressed with their ideas.
Yeah, I think that's an important part of entrepreneurship, though, is getting your ego bruised, because otherwise you're just gonna have blinders on the whole process.
So I was in a job interview once, and they were like, "Are you humble?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes, but empirically, I'm also right a lot." And I did not get that job. But what I meant was, and I explained this in the interview, I said, well, I don't talk about anything I don't understand. And if I don't understand something, I find 5 people I know that I respect that do understand it. And then I ask them questions. Then I go read a book that each one of them recommends. And I don't talk about that idea until I've done that work. And so I probably answered the question incorrectly. But I do wish more people would take casual stabs at the question more seriously.
Yeah.
Because then we could all be having such more interesting conversations.
Absolutely.
So anyway, there's Drew's unpopular opinion.
Might not be as unpopular as you think. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Let's see. This next one is December 1st, 1948. Scrabble was copyrighted by James Bruno, maybe, yeah, maybe the T is silent.
It's kind of a subtlety.
So was copyrighted in December 1st, 1948. It was trademarked in December 16, 1948. June 16, 1956, it was patented. So my question is, which one of those was better for Scrabble in the long run? Thoughts?
Well, the patent gives them 20 years to get a firm hold on the market so that they can come out as the front runner without direct competition. But then after 20 years, that's gone, and they need something else that's going to last longer.
Their trademark's building a household name for future products.
Right.
For as they come out, they're a trusted game brand.
I'm glad they went with the full trifecta. That being said, it's a question of like how much market share do they get during the patent. But I would say that the trademark is more valuable just by virtue of it being a game.
You got your screen up there.
Yep, I do. So Scrabble ownership in the public domain. So I've got a couple articles on this here. And this one, I think this just tells about it. Here we go, copyright. Copyright expiration is particularly important. Original copyright period of 14 years applied to works created. But wait, that's longer, isn't it, Leo? Isn't that longer than 14 years?
I thought so. I was actually surprised when I saw it.
Yeah,
Like copyright was 1 week longer than Mickey Mouse has been copyrighted.
That's pretty much the rule, yeah.
yeah, that's it. That's it.
Because, yeah, I mean, it's the
They
same reason.
keep changing the goalposts, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same reason you should get into life insurance, because that's how the rich hide their money. And they're the ones that pay the politicians, and that will always be true.
Yeah.
So,
It just keeps on going.
Although I find it weird that Steamboat Willie, which is Mickey Mouse, is now public domain, and I don't really know how that works. Yeah, because it's like Mickey's still very protected, but the first iteration of
Steamboat
Mickey
Willie
is
is not.
right.
ooh,
Yeah.
Hmm,
Yeah, now
really?
we're seeing like weird horror games coming out that are parodying it because it's public domain and they can do that. And use
Oh,
the
is that Winnie the
license.
Pooh too?
No, I don't think. Well, yeah, I bet you're right. I bet
That's
you
what's a
they're
weird
making
Winnie
a
the Pooh.
horror Winnie the
Yeah.
Pooh thing. Yeah,
I
that's
think,
right.
didn't it recently?
Yeah.
I saw
Just
somebody had a
recently.
shirt that has Winnie the Pooh and says no bothers given.
Oh, goodness.
I'm this close to buying that shirt.
Oh, yeah, I almost want that shirt. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I mean,
I think patents and copyrights and trademarks, I think we live in a world like, so 1948, the means of production was within the company, right? Like they had the capital and they had the physical means of production, and they had the capital and the marketing engine. So
Yep.
like all of the elements of the means of production were residing within, and thus the weapons that they chose were to fight other corporations. I don't know how strong copyrights are these days in the rate at which people produce. Several of my friends, we laugh and think there's nothing left to invent. It's all been invented. Like, if you don't think so, just go to Google and like, whatever your idea is, Google it. Somebody maybe has invented it already. And
you
then,
know, that was a famous quote from the very first patent office, what, commissioner?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, and this was like 1799. So he said, everything that has been
oh,
invented.
yeah. But
But
so like Eli Whitney with the cotton gin, he spent any money that he made on the cotton gin, he spent trying to defend it. Like he would take people to court, but it was so replicatable because it was just a set of gears. And at that time, lots of people could do that. And that he spent all of his money trying to litigate his patent. So like I think that we're in a spot now again where the means of production resides. I mean, like how big is your facility?
Oh, it's a workshop. It's not very big. Yeah.
Right, in a
200 square feet.
workshop, you can now make make circuit boards and sensors and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, you rewind the clock 25 years, and that was not the case.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the means of production has left the large corporation. And so now the only thing that large corporations really have is IP and capital.
Yeah.
And venture kind of makes capital questionable. But marketing we have, and technological understanding and tools we have. So I think the landscape is changing a little bit.
Yeah. For the
Which is
better.
exciting,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
better.
Right,
Yes, for the
right.
better.
Well, if you look up Scrabble's trademark details, I don't know if this was interesting. So status date 2014, April 8th, 2014. And then the filing date was 1953. But I think, yeah, here we go. Trademark events. So 1974, they renewed it. It was a 20-year renewal. 2004, it was renewed again, 10-year renewal. And then I guess the latest one was 20. I guess they're up. I guess it's time to file again. So I thought that was really interesting because again, I think who wins in the end? Trademarks and copyrights. I always go back to the same thing about the jeans, Levi jeans. So patent in 1880, and I mean, to Kelly's point, that was important in 1880. 2014, 2017, 2024. But their trademark still active,
But
filed in 1880, right?
so you can go places in China, and I've not been there, so it is what it is. But you can go places in China where they have like buildings that are set up, and you can get electronics on this floor, and you can get design services on this floor, and like so. Without trademarks or some sort of cap on the speed of innovation, you it's kind of like it's too hot in China because the people that are investing in the idea, they can't really even make any money before somebody copies them.
Yeah.
And then like the hoverboards aren't patented. Like, and the reason that's why they're ubiquitous. So we, the consumer, get ubiquitous hoverboards, but the person that invented it doesn't really get the benefit of that.
No.
I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know how I feel about that because I like hoverboards. Well, I don't like broken legs, but you know,
Or batteries that catch fire.
or batteries that catch fire. I mean, maybe that's the answer is that when there is nobody that really owns it, you lose accountability. Anyway, it's just it's an interesting ecosystem in which these laws are not really enforced and it's too hot there. And I think it's
Mhm.
maybe a little bit retarded here, like
Yep.
reduced, held back.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, I think that's where some of the power of like your brand and who you are as a company is, because we get that a lot of, like our customers know we make quality products that are made here in the US. And like we have like a support team that's real humans that you can contact and stuff like that. And like we stand behind our products. So that helps justify some of the premium versus like an overseas clone that you buy it, it doesn't work and you can't call anybody and there's no repercussion.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Maybe that's what it comes down to is,
The qualitative element.
yeah. I mean, how frustrating is it when you can't get hold of a company? Or they're so big that you can't even communicate with a human being.
Like AT&T.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. That's an excellent example.
Too close to home? No.
But yeah, I mean, call automation, they can talk to somebody.
Yeah, I think that stands out. I mean, me as a consumer, like, you know, we all have limited time. We all don't want to sit on a phone and or on a chat talking to level 1 support for 2 hours until you're on hold for
Right.
level 2, and then you know it takes forever to get your answer. So yeah, I think like I choose certain companies. For like our internet company and all of that, there's much better ones than like Time Warner that you can never get a hold of and all that.
Yeah, you wonder if there'll be kind of a shift back to that. I would like to think.
I think so. I think neo-tribalism is just around the corner when it comes to like customer decisions, which is also a change for the better.
Yeah.
I think it comes with experience too. You know, you learn that the cheap things fall apart faster. And if you're okay with the cheap falling apart really quickly and just buy another one, okay. But if you want the product you want and you want it to last, sometimes that costs more, but that's an experience thing. So how do you educate the customers faster about the fact that they'll actually save long term to kind of, you know, justify the cost and get them to buy into the fact that they're buying a better quality product.
There's a subreddit out there called Buy It for Life.
Yeah.
And I always think of this meme of it's like a 1970s refrigerator. And it's like, you know, or maybe it's one of those side-by-side memes where it just shows a new one that says breaks in 2 years. And the one from the 1970s says, I will outlive you. You will. And it's true. I mean, stuff just didn't, you almost think it's planned obsolescence in some cases.
I think
It's
it
100%.
Yeah. They want you to buy a new one in 2 years. But what if you could build a car that, you know, maybe they had crank windows, maybe they, you know, I always wondered, could you take a design from a car from the 60s, just pick a date, and, you know, just old school everything. You could fix it in your front yard if you needed to, and stuff wouldn't break like they do today. Or a washer or a refrigerator or whatever. And would those sell? And, you know, you just brand it as that.
So there's a washing machine that is that way. I don't know the name. My wife was trying to, like, our washing machine is fine, so there's no justification for it. But she was like, hey, look at this. And it's like literally, it's kind of out of the homesteading culture, like the
Yeah.
prepper homesteading culture,
Mhm.
but it's a washing machine that's built like the old days. And it's
Mm.
designed,
There used to be one back in the day, and this is gonna tell them how old I am, but called a Bendix washer, Bendix.
Oh.
You know this one, or you've heard of this one. And I mean, that was the, if you got one of those, it never broke.
Mm. Yeah, the Soviets, they had a car called the Lada Niva, and that thing, I mean, again, it was the Soviets, so like the only two good things they ever made was AK-47 and this car. But they like never break down. Like people are still driving them around. It's insane. But that's what they were made for. There was no need for obsolescence because there was no, market association with it.
Yeah.
And your washer comment reminded me of this really funny case where the guy got sued for fraud, and it was such a watertight argument that he ended up getting away with it. But he was selling a solar powered dryer through the mail to people. And
Let me
you already know
guess.
where we're going. Yeah, people were getting a string to clips
Oh.
in the mail. And, yeah, a lot of people were suing him, but it didn't pan out because that's what he's doing.
oh, that's funny. That's
Yeah.
so funny.
Oh, I love that. The solar powered.
That's funny.
Oh, yeah. It almost makes you want to just do that. Oh, gosh, that's funny. All right. December 26th, 1933, Edwin Armstrong is granted a patent for FM radio. And let's see, am I sharing the right thing? Yes. So, Edward Armstrong actually made a breakthrough in 1933. However, and this was the interesting part of this, it really didn't catch on until the 1970s. Or 60s, I want to say. I think it was about middle 60s that he here's another, this one's better. So the term FM, so AM was always associated with a lot of static, and you couldn't listen to it during a thunderstorm, all these things you still kind of live with. But FM was kind of an interesting innovation, but it was invented in 1933, but wasn't until by the 1960s became one of the most popular and dominant stations in New York City. And then the growth was fueled by proliferation of I might want to pronounce that today.
Sales guys.
Sales guys, stereos, 1950s, 1960s. So it sort of changed. But I just thought it was interesting that they really didn't catch on for that many decades.
Maybe the AM radios weren't breaking.
That could be it. Hey, it does not, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
So I'm listening to Zig Ziglar right now. I'm going like through all of this stuff because I'm in a sales cycle right now, and I was like, I need to go back to the Zig.
Yeah.
And he makes a really interesting case. And as entrepreneurs, as inventors, we need to take notice. The sales guy is the guy that drives the entire economy, because the sales guy convinces you to buy. So now he's got a commission check, which he then takes and he gives to his wife so that she can go buy groceries. I'm literally quoting Zig at this point, right? And then she buys groceries. So now the grocer has money. So then but like at the very end, if we're not making a sale, it's just a hobby, right?
Right.
So as inventors, we got to learn how to make those sales. Otherwise, we just have a hobby, and it's not until the sales guy makes the sale. So you look at America, and America is a giant. It's a giant culture of salespeople. At least it was maybe up till the 1980s. Because we're inventing new ways to solve problems for people, and then we're convincing people they need to buy those things. And we're the only culture that does that. Like the other cultures do it on some level. But if you look at the rate of innovation, that's a bunch of sales guys inventing stuff that they want to sell, and then a bunch of people buying. So
opportunity-driven innovation.
Yeah, so you got a bunch of guys out there hustling, selling FM radios, and they're like, hey, I don't know what their sales pitch was, right? But
Right.
somebody had to be like, hey, like, it's actually Elon's problem right now with electric cars. So we don't have enough chargers,
That's true.
right? It's the
Yep.
infrastructure problem. So if you were an FM station in 1945,
Who's
listening to you?
Yeah. that
that's
makes
who's
sense.
advertising.
And if you're selling FM radios, and there's not enough FM radio stations out there,
Yeah,
so it's kind of chicken and the egg.
yeah. So yeah, he has Elon's problem. So Elon he's given away all of his patents. He said, look, all of my patents are free range. And they're like, why is that? And he never really says this, but because he let all of his patents be free range, all of his systems and their standardization, like their nozzles, are the standard for the industry now. And so now all the other car companies are making electric cars that can utilize his charging stations and his batteries, so now it used to be he's the only people making this thing. And now all the other car companies are driving. So essentially he's getting a volume discount on his batteries and his charging stations because all the other folks are trying to catch up to him. And he got that discount because he gave away everything for free.
Oh.
Anyway,
Interesting.
these are cool.
So I wonder if there's a strategy there of giving things away for free in the beginning.
Yeah, he's an EV magnate at this point.
I think when
It's-
you're in I'm building there's got to be an ecosystem and an infrastructure for everything that you're selling. And so if there's not an ecosystem and an infrastructure, you may have the best mousetrap. But if people don't know it, which is
Yes.
marketing infrastructure, and people can't buy it and replenish it, like so I give you a hammer, but we don't make nails, then your hammer doesn't do a lot of good.
Right.
So it's all inventions have an ecosystem. I guess that's my point.
That's true.
Sorry, I got excited about
Oh,
that because I've been listening to Zig. Zig's amazing.
I like it. I like it. So do you think that you all experienced that at all as far as, well, you have actually a great story about that because you kind of have a built-in cheerleading customer base, early adopter.
Yeah. And similar to that, we don't patent our products, but we also open source. So our firmware is open source and transparent, and our CAD files for our enclosures and are open source. And that does give like a cool effect where like people can modify them and then share them back to our community. So then like, I mean, people have made mounts for our sensors that we don't make, but they make them a design, and then they share those designs, and then with the proliferation, I can't say the word either, sorry. The widespread amount of 3D printers nowadays that like people can just make new mounts and new ways to use our products is really a cool thing. And then on the software side is even better because they can find a bug, make a suggestion to us, or even better yet, a pull request where they fix it and want to bring it into our code base for us to review, which is fantastic.
Well, I love what you're doing with the Discord server.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Discord, if there's listeners who don't know, it's kind of an online forum that's really more of like a whole bunch of group texts. And so we knew our customer base because we were our customer base when we started. We're techier. They're mostly there's a strong correlation with gaming, which is where Discord is more popular. But it allowed us to build this Discord server and then invite our customers. We invite all of our customers to it. We have links to it all over the place for even non-customers who just want to chat. And it gave us a cool place to consolidate all of our customers that were actually interested in hearing our marketing or development or asking them questions versus just an email list where you're blasting it out or just an ad on a random website. So these are like super targeted our users that want to see us succeed. They like our products. And even in there, there's been like crowd engineering of, problem solving where we can post a problem and say, hey, should we go down route A or down route B? Like, which is the better route here? And the community can give us feedback that we can take in directly from the people who are going to purchase our sensors, or if they're not the people, then they're the market of our people who want to. And like, that's been a really cool way.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of startups out there that would probably just really love to have access to something like that.
Yeah, it's extremely valuable as an inventor and entrepreneur because you can tap into these people and ask them questions about business, well, like your product decisions and which way you want to go and make your business decisions off of that. We further that with like a monthly live stream where we'll do a live stream that's like just transparent. It's how our product development's going, what problems we're having, which kind of circles back to the ego we were talking about earlier, where
Yep.
it's nice to look perfect and say like, you know, hey, I'm the smartest engineer in the world. I don't have any problems. This is my first try and I got it. But you get a lot of feedback from talking about your problems and where you're stuck. And
You should have
being
a customer
transparent.
roast night at some point.
yeah, yeah. So it's very cool. I encourage. Discord doesn't work for all like communities for sure, but like, you know, more targeted mailing lists for people that are like very interested in your product or however else you could accomplish that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So trying to figure out how to describe this. I used to do work for the US Air Force into large contracts. And this is the problem that we had is so the way that the contracting process works, if you've ever seen the diagram for it, it's massive flow diagram. But it starts with functionally this is the way it works. Some kid is like, oh, this is what we should do. And then he writes a white paper. And then it goes to a bunch of old guys. And they say, yeah, okay, I think that means that white paper means these words. And then both of those guys, they put that into like a big pile and it waits for 2 years. And both of those guys get promoted off to somewhere else, right? And they do this on purpose because they like, you know, when you get to generals, if you're a general in Hawaii and you have a problem that somebody in New York can fix, you want to know each other. So it's very important that you cross-pollinate. So like that's a very good thing.
Okay.
But the problem is this young buck and this old guy, every 2 years, they're like picked up and moved to a different department. And then there's this paper that says, hey, make me a red can of soda. And then like 2 years later, the budget's been approved by Congress. And then they write a contract and they're like, I think they wanted Coke. Like, no, I wanted a red can of spray paint. But you didn't say spray paint, you said red can. So now we've got Coke. So then that contract comes to me, the contractor, and I'm like, Coke, cool, we'll buy you a bunch of Coke. Buy a bunch of Coke. And the new kid who's sitting here, who's like 2 cycles away from the original guy that wrote it, he's like, why did you give me Coke? Right. So it's the opposite problem that we have is that the user community is not connected to the contracting or the production side. And that disconnect, I mean, a large amount of government, we talk about government waste and abuse. It's not abuse because he wrote what he's supposed to do. He wrote what he was supposed to do. In my position at this industry, I was doing what the contract told me I had to do, but we weren't talking to the original actual user.
Dang.
Wow.
And so like literally, I can easily with unequivocally say I saw $9 million of stuff. Literally, like we put something on, it didn't work, we took it off, we put something else on, it didn't work, and then like we never put anything on that worked.
I think you just made me an anarchist.
Yeah, I'm not, no, I'm in this say I'm not an anarchist. No.
Oh, no.
That's a little bit in software, you get that kind of Scrum or Agile methodology
Yeah.
where you put one on and then you grab the customer and you're like, hey, I put this on. Is this correct? And they're like, why?
Did you do that?
You know, and so you fix it before you put a million of them on. And so I think that there's some value in that. Get something out, put it in front of somebody and see what they do and see if it matches with what they thought.
But in Agile, there's that close coupling between
There
the
is,
user.
there
And so
is.
you have an Agile system basically with hardware and you're describing it with software. And in the government, it's not that way at all. In any rate, but yes, 100%, that's what you need to
It's
do.
almost like a game of telephone where you're like starting with one thing and by the time you get to the end product, the guy
Yes.
scratching his head and says, why am I seeing a truckload of Coca-Cola when I needed spray paint?
100%, except in addition to the telephone game, there are laws that'll put people in jail if you break the telephone game on purpose. And the other people know that, and their bonuses are also connected to it. And so everybody throughout the whole telephone is like, yeah, that's what I heard. That's what you heard. Yep, that's what you heard. Yep, we didn't do anything wrong. It's 100% that way.
Oh my.
And now I'm not employable anymore. Okay.
yeah,
Remember, you are on YouTube.
Yes, I know. It is like,
to circle back what Kelly was saying there, I'm a huge advocate on that of like, whether it's a software product or a hardware product, like get it in front of people. That could be potential customers, that could be your family and friends, like get your thing to people at the earliest stage you can to get feedback on it. Because you can spend years developing an idea in a bubble and then you come out with your product and you don't like, you think it's perfect or you think the market wants it, but you could be very, very wrong. So the earlier you can get that out to anybody, I think I always advocate for that.
Well, on that point, let me move on a little bit here to inventions in the news. We'll move up to present day, and this one's interesting. It's the world's first nuclear-powered diamond battery. So, get on the. Let me show you the article on this. So, moving away from FM. So this is a nuclear-powered diamond battery with a 5,700-year lifespan. Actually, there's somebody here that can. Leo, is this a good one to?
Oh,
explain?
yeah, flipping Lovehart.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yep, she's good. Okay.
I don't think you
guess
shared
what
the
I didn't
sound.
do.
Yeah.
I did not share sound. Let me go back. Sorry, guys. Got to go to where, back to share,
Yeah.
back to share.
Thinking about it now, we might get copy striked.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right, because there's one I gotta do later that's, I definitely can't play because we will get copy strike. Okay, so anyway, she's talking about it. It's really great.
can you throw that link in the comments?
That's a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah,
Great idea.
can you do it, Leo?
I can.
All right, good deal. So this is a carbon 14 diamond battery that leverages the radioactive decay of carbon 14 and to generate electricity. Encased in a diamond, which is one of the hardest known materials, the battery safely captures radiation to produce power. Carbon 14, short
You would
range
think carbon
radiation.
14 wouldn't really be powerful enough. Like it decays real slow. Like it's
That's
literally.
what I'm wondering. How much power is this thing going to put out?
Yeah.
How do you recharge it?
You
You
don't.
You don't.
It's basically.
It takes forever.
Once every 5,700 years.
Yeah. So you should be fine.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a fixed amount of energy in it.
Yeah, there is, but it lasts 5,700 years. So basically, so carbon 14, so you got carbon, which is I think 12 electrons. Okay. And 14 has 2 extras. So that makes it unstable. So it starts firing electrons out as a radiation. So if you trap that in a diamond, those electrons are instead going to be harnessed instead of just flying out into the ether. And that's how the battery uses energy. Instead of running a current through of electrons, instead it's literally taking the energy from electrons that are just naturally flying off from the decay.
Huh.
Yeah.
But I mean, like how much voltage?
That's
how
what
much
we were
amperage?
trying to
That's
figure
the
out.
question,
Yeah,
yeah.
like it
I
couldn't.
Aren't they?
Because last I
powering,
checked,
like,
a little diamond is
the
very
Mars
expensive.
rovers or something like
Yeah.
that?
Oh,
Don't they have a nuclear battery on the back?
I think you're right. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, interesting.
I think they do. I don't know what the technology is called, but I think it's some type of a decay.
Well, it's super easy to source the carbon 14 because it's literally like the graphite from like it's like a radioactive waste product from nuclear power plants. So it's not like they're mining for it or anything. They're basically reusing
There's a
something.
factory that makes it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So
Well,
yeah.
the other question is how they get it in a diamond.
that's a good question.
Like Superman.
Yeah.
Superman.
I saw
It's
that.
those
episode.
superpower. You saw it in the movie once.
Yeah.
So it's got to be true, right?
That's cool though. I mean, I like the idea of new ways to store energy. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if they say, let me look this up again real quick.
Where do we dispose of them?
Well, that's the other nice thing because the diamond is so thick, it being a big crystalline structure, like cube structure, you don't have to. That's the nice thing. It traps that energy. So it's basically a 5,700-year-old battery that you don't really have to worry about.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, again, it doesn't, like, by the time it runs out of energy, it's inert. It's just carbon at
At
that.
that point, it's just a diamond with some carbon in it.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And it's 5,000 years later, so you really don't care.
Yeah.
Someone else's
Thinking
problem.
like that caused the problem we have today.
So it says here, the process involves using a plasma deposition rig, a specialized device developed by a collaborative team at UKAEA.
To grow the diamond structure. So it's a
Oh,
manufactured
they're
diamond.
growing the
The
diamond
diamond around it.
around it.
That's
Okay,
flipping cool.
alrighty. That is wild.
Yeah, I was picturing them like running lightning through it and, like, batting it. That's a lot more sensible.
I choose to believe that it's your way.
There we go.
They're beaming it in like Star Trek.
It's cool though. Did we get to put it on a glove? Like we get multicolored ones and we put them on a big,
Yeah, like rhinestones.
Yeah.
big infinity gauntlet?
Oh, yeah. So, well, my question is, okay, could this become a real life thing? Is it? Because I see so many things that are like, oh, we did this cool thing in this lab, but when am I going to see where I can like put a battery like that on my phone? Never have to charge my battery again. My phone again.
Looking at me.
Everybody's looking at Kelly.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of amperage, wattage, anything it'll put out. Most likely, I would assume, well, I would think inductive charging, but then you've got the diamond casing around it, which may
Yeah.
prevent that. So I don't know how you tap into the power. Yeah, the power is being released, but how do you tap into those electrons that are coming off? And
No idea.
Growing crystals is pretty amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a brief encounter with somebody at a conference in DC. It was a National Science Foundation SBIR winners. And this guy, I got to sit down and have lunch with him. And I wish I could find his contact. If you're out there, call me. So they were growing crystals. They were growing these big crystals, I mean really big ones, and they were putting them in spacecraft as the windows. So I guess everything else melts
Yeah.
when you're re-entering in the atmosphere.
yeah, it's like some of the instruments in chemistry labs, they'll have sapphire or diamond on them because it doesn't break. And you're gonna really crank down on the pressure, and you need something that's gonna be able to withstand that pressure and still be see-through so that you can look at your sample through it. So
Wow,
sapphire and diamond are two really common ones there.
that's amazing.
Yeah. Now sapphire is kind of cool because it only conducts light one direction, right? I think somebody was telling me,
I don't know.
okay, we have no way to verify this, but it's true.
Drew said it, so it must be true.
No, I think that, I think the question you asked was, will we be able to see this? And I think
Yep.
the answer to that question is two parts. One is, can we manufacture these so like a AA battery produces X amount of energy, right? At 1.5 volts, right? And it's a D battery and a lithium battery like this, right? Can we make those batteries cheaper than we can make the current ones for the same energy density, right? Energy density is another question. Can we put it in, like
Yeah.
this phone has a case in it. And it's absurd how small these things.
Yeah.
I don't know the last time you guys took your phone out of the case, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that is.
so, and the battery is only half that thickness itself, right? So there's a question of energy density, and then there's a question of economics. And then beyond that, it's where do we stop drawing the circle on the economics? Because if I can ignore how we currently mine lithium batteries, then Teslas are extremely green. But if you consider how we mine, which is literally strip mining by hand,
Yep.
which is a soft way of saying slavery. And then when we have to throw them away and they're toxic and they're going to leak out of our landfills, when you draw the circle that big,
Right.
it's a terrible idea. It's the most non-green thing you can have. But if you put it like on I like having the cool little car with cameras on it that I don't have to drive so that I can tell my friends that I care about the environment and slavery, then it's a great little circle. But if you draw the circle in the right size and the economics of that and the environmental impact of that. So the question is, who gets the political credit and the virtue signaling for saying that they're moral? And And where can we hide the damage? And
I-
if those answers are answered, then I think, yeah, we could probably do it easy.
Well, this goes back to you talking about a pre-existing ecosystem. I think that ultimately it'll scale outward. Like it'll start off with early adopters who like really want something that lasts that long, like people with pacemakers, for example, because you know, why wouldn't you want something that lasts 5,000 years and not, you know, run the risk? And then from there, it's going to be, you know, hospital equipment and then emergency equipment like FEMA stuff, generators. And
Right.
then if it works out in that market, then I think that's when it'll ripple outward because people will get more adept at making it. But that's the big question is like, can they get over that hurdle first? Can they start with,
Right, something high profile that is not size constrained.
right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like, so helicopters, for instance,
Mm.
helicopters have to use gas because it's an energy density issue. Like batteries can't hold enough energy to take you to the oil rig and back,
Okay, that makes sense.
right?
Interesting.
And if you added more batteries, it would weigh more. So it's literally a weight and packaging energy density problem. And fuels are the only way we can get there.
Sure.
Now cars, you can do with batteries because you can recharge them fairly frequently. So your energy density from a weight perspective, you can just recharge it.
Sure.
But so when you talk about batteries, you have an energy density problem and you have an economics problem, and then you have a socio-political virtue signaling problem.
This kind of goes back to the whole, how much power can we get into how small of a diamond?
Right.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's what it goes back. Yep.
And so if you could get a tremendous amount of power in a very, very small diamond, yeah, I could see that maybe being a viable option. But it kind of comes down to a math problem.
Yeah.
At the end of it all.
How much energy does it take to grow that diamond?
That's true too.
And
Yeah.
is that offset? Now, if you're growing it at a nuclear power plant, where essentially you have infinite energy, right? Then maybe arguably, but even then you're still, again, it goes to how big you're drawing the circle in the economics.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's really, I feel like I'm a Debbie Downer here. I think new magic energy is very cool, but those are the questions that you ask immediately to know if it's a viable.
Yeah, the guy that, you know, when you said how much does it cost to grow a diamond? When this guy was growing sapphires or whatever it was, some kind of crystal, he said when they went right, it was perfect, it was great, but a lot of times they went wrong. And he said, I got this one that like a big sapphire thing that's this big. I use it as a doorstop. This is why I want to like find this guy again, because I want him to send me a doorstop.
Love it. So one more real quick thing on this is, have you guys heard of the learning curve?
The learning curve.
So the learning curve was written, one of Harvard's big claims to fame is the Boston Consulting Group. That was done by Stephen Henderson. He's out of Harvard. So his big claim to fame is called the learning curve. And it says your costs decrease by 20 to 30% every time you double your experience. So it's it's an asymptote, it's a logarithmic curve.
Wow.
So first time you do it, let's say it costs $100. Second time you do it, it's going to cost $80. Then you have to do it 2 more times before it costs $60. 2 more times, and it'll cost $55, and then it curves out, right? So what's interesting about that is if you can figure out the exponent of that curve, is it 20, is it 10, is it 30%? Then you can predict your future costs based on your first or second trials. You can put yourself on that curve and you can say after 1,000 of these, this is where I'll be. So you could apply the learning curve to this new battery, use an analogy to our old battery techs that we've gone through. We've gone through 2 cycles of batteries now, right? The nickel, lead nickel ones, or sorry, the lead acid ones.
Or whatever.
Right, so we've done this a couple, 3 times. So you
Yeah.
can, you can take that curve, you can say, this is what it costs in the lab, and you could lay it out and say, this is what it'll probably cost in 10 years.
Predictive model. Okay.
Yeah, another interesting corollary of the learning curve is, and this applies to folks that, since we're all inventing stuff and doing it is market share. So if I am doing twice the amount of production that you are, then my costs are going to decrease way faster than yours are going to decrease. So all the acquisitions and stuff, when people talk about buying market share and mergers and acquisitions and trying to get ahead and win market share or Scrabble, that's a learning curve. They're using the learning curve to buy cycles to reduce their costs so that they're defensible. Anyway, the learning curve is super, super fascinating. It underpins almost all of modern business theory.
Is that a book?
I read it. The Harvard Business Review has a perspective on it. But like, have you,
I gotta find that. Oh, I wanna look at
you know the four quadrants, the rising stars and the dogs and the cash cows? That is a quadratic equation that is it's caused by the learning curve.
that.
So here, the learning curve is I totally geek out because the other way people always apply the learning curve like this. They'll say, oh, you're building the 2026 Camry. What's your first unit? Okay, well then your 1 millionth unit will be this. That's assuming that the 2026 Camry is a completely different item than the 2025 Camry,
Right.
right? Which is not really. It's like
Well,
it's basically the same.
Tweaked,
Yeah.
yeah.
So really, your cost is
The
down
line's
here on the
longer.
curve, and
Yeah.
it doesn't have a curve to go down anymore.
yeah.
So choosing the right spot on the curve is as important as using the curve. And then there's other ways you can use so like if you know I'm here and it's this curve and this is the correct curve, then I can buy common tooling, I can hire an expert, I can use best practices, I can use analogies, and you can like warp speed down the curve. You know, it's the most fascinating analog scenario.
Again, another analog answer in a digital
Another
world,
analog
right? All right, let's move on to the next one here. So this one is they call it a new vibration dampener. I always remember in what was it? Is it Technobabble in some science fiction show? You know, inertial dampeners are offline. So this is supposed to be kind of that, I guess, on the magnet trick. New invention makes vibrations disappear. So this is a floating platform with nanometer precision. It's a vibration dampening system mounted on a free-floating platform above it. Platform is suspended in the air, kept in place by strong magnetic forces, several electromagnetic. Well, I'm in trouble with words today. Actuators can then fine-tune the position of the platform with high precision in fractions of a second, even with a load of several kilograms is mounted on the platform. So, what do y'all think? Is this something that could be, or is it again a really cool thing in the lab that might not
I
really?
always
really
find these
work?
like cutting edge things fascinating from the standpoint of like, what problem are they trying to solve? Like, where is this used at?
Yeah.
It's like,
Right.
I don't know of an application. I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
But they're developing it.
Random consumer, exactly.
Yeah. So like, what
No, but
what
like,
market or product uses
Microscopes, telescopes.
well, that's what I was gonna say. A lot of analytical equipment, LASIK surgery equipment, you've got those need to be on a ground floor and they need to be dampened so that you don't have any variation. Because the last thing you want when they're doing LASIK on your eyes is a little bit of variation.
Whoops.
So, but with with chemical equipment as well, yeah.
Right.
But my thought on that is that it's talking, it's electromagnetic. And so a lot of those are going to have metal components within them. And so you're going to have this kind of conflicting goals of this magnetic field surrounding a piece of really precise equipment, and it could impact that as well. So that's a little bit to your point. Like, I don't know
Might be
the
able to-
use case that wouldn't interfere with what's sitting on top of it being dampened. Dampening is very important in a lot of fields. Just I don't know that the magnetic field's going to interfere with that.
It works great as long as it stays in the lab.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, that sometimes they'll get it to work perfect in the lab, they'll do a big study, and then you get it out of the lab, and there's all these variables called real life, and it changes, and oh wait, this won't work. Drew, you're shaking your head like you've been there.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the story itself. So there's a funny story. There's a funny story from my early days in helicopter design. So the hub is the central part of the helicopter that holds the blades in, right? And so one of the young guys, he may or may not have come from a school that sounded like Ireland. So he was like, why are we designing this thing? This is so inefficient. I can make a much more efficient structure. He's like brand new out of school, and he's like telling this to all of us. And we're like, do tell. And so the chief gave him a chance, and he goes, okay, cool, design it. So he designs this very simple structure, and it was elegant. And the chief was like, yeah, but what about what about the flapping hinge? It's like, oh yes, he goes back and designs it. He's like, what about the lead lag hinge? He's like, yeah, okay. So what about the twisting or the feathering hinge? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, what about the damper? It's like, what about the, and then like by the time he gets back to it, he walks back in and he goes, your all's design is very efficient.
He took the long way around.
Yeah, and we let him run for about 2 weeks. And like every time they come up with this new like optimized design, we'd be like, what about this? What about like, do you think we didn't? This is what we do for a living.
But that's really great because you trained him really quickly.
No, that's true.
You didn't wait 5 years of him just wondering. You trained him really quickly of why you got to where you are. And so I bet he's a much more efficient employee than all the other ones who just buckled under and accepted it.
No, that's very true. That's very true. And that you're exactly right. Letting people make those mistakes is a critical. That's super well said. Super well said. Yeah. So the damper thing is another question of where are you drawing the circle, because of Newton's laws, the forces that you're damping are being pushed back into the table. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they gotta go somewhere, right?
Because in helicopters, we have a lot of dampers, right? And then if it's not just in the helicopters, you have it we call it the Shake Shack, the testing lab, right?
The Shake Shack.
Right. And so you're trying to input these massive forces into your test sample, which means you have to have a massive machine to do it. So when you do a damper, the load comes out somewhere else. So like they said on the article, it says can handle several kilograms. But that's like millions of milligrams. Right? Like they used a number that like that's 2 pounds. They're like, it can handle 4 to 8 pounds. Like, okay, like I can also. So, but I love, Kelly, you brought up a great example about certain scenarios that need at the surface plate complete still.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But to say but then that means the table is kind of getting it. Does that make sense? So it's not removing the damper from the world. It's just removing it from a specific surface. Like your noise canceling headphones, I can't point them at you. They wouldn't cancel the sound. They only cancel it at this locus that goes on my ear. So it's all about where you draw the circle.
So Kelly, does Beowulf have a Shake Shack?
We do, yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Okay, do tell.
Yeah, we've got some different instruments that we can put whatever you want on there and shake the snot out of them. We do have some testing that'll emulate a truck going down the road. So as you think about shipping your parts, so we have something that'll emulate a truck going down the road and hitting every speed bump and pothole along the way.
Wow.
So if you want to see what happens to your product in those situations, we can do that.
That's cool. What's the most interesting success or fail you've ever had? If
I
you've
don't
got it
know.
interesting. Well, let's think about it.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah. I'll bet you've got one in there somewhere.
Think
Maybe you
about how
can't tell it.
complicated that device looked like, and then you go to an engine, car engine, bottom of every car engine. What's down there? Vibration dampener,
Right,
just a
Oh.
wheel, a piece of rubber on it,
yeah.
a couple holes in it for
That's true.
timing and timing marks on it. It's just a wheel, just dumb.
If you didn't have that,
And
it'd be an
compared to that
awfully,
thing,
Yeah.
rough ride if you didn't have that.
So
the engine would be
what is
vibrating.
interesting about that, and this is 100% to George's point, is most dampers are designed for a specific frequency,
Mhm.
right? So like that's quarter notes, half notes, da, 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 da. Well, if this one's starting to go like da, 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 and this one's, then you're going to feel one of these two vibrations, because no damper in the world can take that and dampen it out, and that and dampen it out. But a PID controller like that, electromagnetic one that could sense it, and then for your human response could experience it, could damp it out. So a multispectral damper is actually quite interesting. In a very dorky sort of way. Because the other thing is you have this direction of damping, and you have this direction of damping, and you have this direction, and you have this direction. And that, there's 6 degrees of freedom that you're damping. So if you can do multispectral damping, so multi-frequency damping on 6 degrees of freedom, that is actually quite an impressive accomplishment.
Okay, well, maybe he'll actually do something.
That's the NSA.
Speed here, is there a P around here? No P? Gotcha.
Oh, we've never had that happen
I
before.
was gonna say, we've never been bombed in real life.
Yeah.
We've had Zoom bombed, but not.
I like that George gave the camera to you.
I want to put the camera on. In case you had a gun, you would shoot me. It's camera.
Yeah,
Oh, gosh.
we've suddenly become the most popular live stream for a very bad reason.
Snap.
Oh, goodness. All right, well, with that, let's move on to the next. I think I've got one more here. Speaking of dampening. So did Cardi B steal the beat from Reservation Dogs? A song called Reservation Dogs. So this is, we don't have this up yet. Hang on just a second. Here we go. And I will not play this because I'll get in all kinds of trouble if I play this. So Cardi B is sued by the producers who claim Enough Miami, which I guess is her song, shows how much I know about Cardi B, stole the beat from their Reservation Dogs song. So Cardi B is facing a new copyright infringement lawsuit that alleges that her recent single, Enough Miami, used the beat from a song that featured on Reservation Dogs without permission. Which begs an interesting question. Can a beat from a song be copyrightable?
Yeah.
You think so,
No,
Lee?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if it's novel, if it's something that you've come up with, yeah, anything, any form of expression that is unique to its creator can be copyrighted pretty much. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions in rule, but even if this has given me like deja vu from just the first few notes of Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie. You know, they got sued by Vanilla Ice, and that was just like the opening beat, really. It was just well, I can't even hum it because it will get
Don't get us sued. Don't
Yeah.
get us thrown off YouTube.
So yeah, if it's unique enough, like I could understand if it was like a really generic signature, like 1-1 or something, or 4-1, but this sounds like it was unique enough to where they have IP for it.
I'd love to play it, but
Yeah,
we can't.
At least we're not doing like a cover where we're straight up ripping it off. But yeah.
So what do you guys think? Any
What are the limits of it though? So like, you have some type of AI that generates millions of different beats that humans would like,
Right.
and I have those as my property. Like, is that a thing? Or will become a thing?
Man, that's a scary thought. Because you could do that with anything that's
Yeah.
artistic. You could literally say, "Oh, you can't write any more books, Stephen King, because I used an algorithm to pretty much come up with every potential narrative you could ever come up with."
Yeah.
Oh.
Does that?
You-
Yeah.
But do copyrights behave like trademarks in that you have to prove that they are out in the market to validate them?
That's a
I think you have to showcase intention to monetize, but I don't think it's the same where like with a trademark, you pretty much don't you have to have like an interstate sale at some point?
Yeah, well, my favorite example of this is UPS. So what I call the ugly color of shade of brown on their trucks and uniforms is copyrighted. No, trademark.
Trademark.
Yeah, trade dress. And so, but it makes a great point about, but it's only for their industry. So if I have a flower shop and I use that color, I can use it all day long. But if I start shipping those flowers, then now I'll probably get a cease and desist letter, along with some other fun stuff from UPS. My favorite one of these is my own little conspiracy theory. So once you get this in your head, you'll never get it out. And I'm going to ruin the song "Radar Love" because I swear the drum solo in "Radar Love" and the theme song, the original George of the Jungle cartoon, are one in the same.
Oh, that's bizarre.
That's my pet theory. But hey, guys, play them. Tell me if I'm wrong. So, all right.
So I think lawyers view the world differently than we view the world.
Yes.
I was helping a client and one of his major customers was going bankrupt, which really sucks. So basically, a good portion of this guy's annual revenue comes from this customer. That customer's going bankrupt. And so that means that the contracts that he has in place that are like based on a 36-month payout, he's gonna only get, he did the service, but now the payout, he's basically getting stiffed by a very large amount of money, like multiple tens of thousands of dollars. So they said, if you want to contest this, you have to send in a letter of complaint and plead your case and blah, 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 blah. So I wrote it up for him and I sent it in, and the lawyer did not acknowledge that I sent it in. He said, well, did you have a lawyer that sent it in? And I was like, it's America with an M. Like, we're all adults. The law is on our side. Like, I'm making a case. He's like, no, if you don't send a letter in, if a counsel doesn't send the letter in, it doesn't count. So I don't know if you guys know this, but lawyers are a different class of human than we are. So when a lawyer sends you a cease and desist letter, like we as reasonable people are like, oh, well, we should apply about that and blah, 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 blah. Lawyers just send each other lawsuits all the time. And they don't care what you say. So I don't see why we should care what they say. I mean, like a little bit because they can put us in jail. But what I'm saying is like the penalty of like, it's kind of like going bankrupt. When somebody says so-and-so's bankrupt or so-and-so is suing so-and-so, we translate that to major problem. But lawyers translate that to a dollar figure can fix this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I'm going to put you in jail and shoot you. That's not what a lawsuit means. A lawsuit means let's settle outside of court and save ourselves the lawyer fees. And sometimes it's just to get your name in the paper.
Sure.
So are those two people really mad at each other?
Well, I would say
Cardi
Cardi
B
B,
publicity.
that's very interesting. Yeah. I mean, because Cardi B is very well off, and this little pumpkin guy or whatever could probably use the press. So, yeah.
Yeah, so suing a famous person and getting an article written about it is inflammatory, but it doesn't mean anything. Like
Right.
we infer, like we'll take a very famous person that everybody probably would know. I don't know if you guys, this guy's name is Trump. I don't know if you
I've
he's been bankrupt a couple of times. What that means is he didn't want to pay back the loan in the way that he took the loan. So you have the legal system put a stop on the payments and they restructured the debt. And then he maybe paid it all off, maybe didn't, but it doesn't mean he defaulted on everything and didn't pay it back. It just means that a legal proceeding happened, which when you're a lawyer is literally what you do as a day job. But we as non-lawyers, we're like, oh no, it happened. No, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's a pain, but it's not that big of a deal.
Wasn't there a couple of burger places or sandwich shops? Well, I think we did a story on this once. One said they invented this sandwich, and then the other one said, no, it's our sandwich, you
Right,
can't
yeah.
use it. And they got in this big feud, but it turned out to just be a big publicity
Right.
stunt.
Yeah. They both sold a
And
lot more
they
sandwiches.
both sold a lot of sandwiches.
So they did a study where they put two soda. So they put a Pepsi machine here at this hallway in this school, and they made $100 a day. And they put a Coke one, and they made $100 a day. And they put the Pepsi and the Coke one right beside each other, and combined the two machines made $300 a day. Because the question, when it was the Coke machine or the Pepsi machine, the question was, do I want a soda?
Right.
But when it was
Wow.
Coke and Pepsi, it was, do I want Coke or Pepsi?
Pepsi, right.
And so the sale was presupposed. So Coke and Pepsi having a rivalry is not a rivalry.
Right.
It's a marketing
mutually
deal.
beneficial, right.
Everybody's winning here, except for, well,
RC.
Coke and Pepsi. So everybody's winning.
Snap.
So when
Wow.
you start looking at the world that way, I think a lot of times as inventors, we try to avoid a lawsuit. Well, I mean, like, don't go seeking one,
Right.
but like, go do your thing. And the other thing is, if you've been working for a year and like for sale in a very public capacity, marketing, they could have easily known that you were doing this thing, and they failed to send you a cease and desist letter. After, I think it's a year, maybe it's two. Let's pretend that it's a year. If they like give it to you on a year plus a day, they already ceded right to your market share, because that's why you get a cease and desist letter for everything, is because the corporate lawyers know they lose their right to contest if they don't send a cease and desist. So anyway, just like as you read the law, understand that We are like, oh, we're having a fight. Well, that means that we're going to have pistols at noon. That's not what it means. It means that the lawyer is getting paid.
We probably
That's
settled a
what it
lot
means.
of disputes.
Well, I'm not a. I'm not getting in trouble. I'm not getting in trouble.
You know, that's where they take the glove off and slap you and I challenge you, sir, to a duel.
Sadly, duels are no longer legal.
Yeah,
So sad.
but yeah, outside of the marketing ploy, I'd almost think just internally, wouldn't attorneys just call that revenue generation?
Yeah, yeah. So that's it's kind of like the celebrities are always somebody's having an affair on somebody else and somebody's divorcing somebody else. Maybe and probably they are having the affair. Probably they are getting a divorce, but they're in the news. They're on the tabloids.
Yeah.
Right.
How can we get more press?
Yeah.
It's amazing. So I guess we'll have to wait and see.
We'll have to wait and see.
So, all right. Well, Trevor, talk to us a little bit about what's going on in Apollo Automation. How'd you all get started?
Yeah, so it got started just as a little hobby project. So a friend and I, we're longtime home automation users and enthusiasts, and we were wanting a different type of a sensor. Kind of frustrated that there's a lot of one application sensors. Maybe we'll just do motion, or one will just do temperature, which leads you to having to buy lots of different ones, increasing the cost and increasing the clutter in your house. And so this is a fun project. We were like, what if we just put them all into one and made it as small as we could? So we did that as a fun project, and some people on the internet were like, hey, we'd buy that. And we're like, oh, okay, we'll form a little company and maybe sell, if we sold a couple hundred, we'd be ecstatic and cover our costs for our hobby. And it just took off from there. So this was last September when we first launched our product. We sold quite a few and introduced an air quality sensor after that, and have just been growing since then.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So what was the hardest part of the process for you?
I think there's two hard things. One is starting your first business. There's so much more than just building a product, right, to a business. But the second thing is so we, for some reason, decided to take on international distribution from day one.
Wow.
Because you can just ship a package anywhere. So that turned out to be a lot harder task. And we had quite a few pre-orders for international orders. So we had to get it figured out, and shipping costs and foreign regulations, not just our own regulations. But so that's always been a struggle. And then our European market has grown substantially.
Wow.
So trying to figure out how you keep stock over there, or how do you get packages there quick enough. That's been quite a big challenge. But so we did just cross a pretty cool milestone within the last few months. So we've always said for, I think sometime in the spring, we reached every continent except Antarctica.
Really?
And so we would always say that on our live streams, okay, we're on every continent except Antarctica. If you know of anybody in Antarctica, give us a call.
You want that final pin
Yeah,
for the
because
map,
who wants to
right?
say every continent but? And 2 months ago, somebody after our live stream was like, hey, I've got a friend, he's a scientist.
Oh my
He's heading
gosh.
to Antarctica in 1 week. Can you get him a sensor in Australia to get on this boat? And we're like,
Oh my God.
what if we can't do it in that 1 week? He's like, that's it. He's coming back in 15 months after that. So that's the only
Wow.
ship. So yeah, we got an air quality sensor down to him. It's en route to Antarctica, so it's not there yet. It takes a couple months of boat travel and all of this.
Wow.
But then they'll be measuring air quality inside of a habitat down there, which is pretty crazy. And then we will have every continent unlocked, which feels
Wow.
like I've won some type of game.
Is it like a bling, bling, bling?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. You have reached level whatever.
Yeah. So it's very rewarding, and it's definitely I'm an inventor. I love building products. I love designing things. And so some of the struggle is okay, I've got to not build something fun today, and I've got to go figure out how to make my product compliant in Europe, which is like not fun for me. So yeah,
There's a lot of just hard, I really don't want to get up and do this part of the whole process.
yeah. There's a lot where like it's fun if you maybe have like a big team and you've got an accountant and you've got a compliance guy and all that. But as a small startup, like you got to wear a lot of hats, and you don't always like putting on all of them to do
Yeah.
it. So.
Well, yeah, and I think that's a trap a lot of times that inventors will fall into, where they'll be, I want to keep doing the fun part. And I'll see this with some folks. It's like they'll have a great idea for something and they'll do all the fun part, and then it starts to get hard. Ooh, this feels like work. And then they'll say, oh, look, here's something shiny over here. And then they just like quit what they're doing because it got hard. And they start again because now they get to start the fun part again.
Yeah, or just ignoring the hard parts and
Yeah.
keep doing more of the fun stuff.
Exactly.
Is not always the greatest.
Absolutely. So what do you think helped you the most to get to where you're now?
So not just because we're at a show like this, but like the Lexington startup community here in Kentucky is fantastic. So again, like we didn't know what we were doing. We just started a business, and like who knows what an LLC is? We'll just make one. This website says I can make one for $10. Sure. All right. Who needs an operating agreement? Right. So we first got started off with UK as a great entrepreneur like boot camp style
Oh, yeah.
thing. They have 2 semesters of that. It's like a free resource after hours, a couple days a week. That led us into hearing about Awesome Inc. here in Lexington,
Yep.
which is another incredible group that
Oh,
is
yeah.
just dedicated to helping your business.
Work with them a lot.
Yeah. Awesome Inc. We got into their fellowship, which has opened up a huge amount of doors for. There's Tech Association of the Bluegrass. There's Lexington Commerce or Commerce Lexington. I always put them the wrong way. There's just more and more resources that we keep getting referred to. There's the Kentucky, it's like the World Trade Committee or something like that
Yep.
helped us out with international distribution. So
That real hard speed bump you had.
yeah. They've just been,
Wow.
fantastic amount of resources here in the Kentucky area that from other entrepreneur friends in other states and cities, say they don't have, which is
Right.
That's
makes
a
me feel
great
very lucky.
point. There's a rising tide raises all ships mentality here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. I take it for granted because I'm so used to it. I feel like the city ought to write you a check for saying all that too.
We try to say it every chance we get. I think it's fantastic. I always joke because when we were talking about getting into the Awesome Inc. Fellowship, if you haven't heard of it, look it up. There's incredible resources to help businesses. I was talking to a friend down in Georgia, and he started businesses all across multiple states. And I was telling him about this program, and he's like, "Yeah, but like, how much? Like, what do they take from you?" And I was like, "Well, like, Awesome Inc. doesn't right now. They're funded by the state to help you out."
Oh.
And he's like, "No, Trevor, that's a scam." He's like, "That's a scam. Nobody's giving away things for free to startups." And I was like, "Oh, turns out, he was wrong. They're not a scam. They're just real people who want to help businesses."
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's been awesome.
Wow,
Not pun
absolutely.
intended, though. Awesome Inc.
Well, I think it boils down to just the difference between a live wire and a dead one's connections. And the more connections you can have with, good organizations that can help you, I think the better off. And it sounds like you connected with as many as you could.
Yeah,
That's
as an introverted engineer, like that's sometimes tough too, right? Like,
yeah.
it's a blast to sit in my workshop and just build things and like not have to go out and go to conferences or get on a stage or a panel. But luckily, I have a co-founder who balances that out very well and is very social and likes those interactions.
That's a good dynamic.
So yeah, like really helps
Cool.
go to those events and is a good emotional support human for me up there.
Emotional support. Fantastic. That's awesome. Fantastic. Well, great. Well, we appreciate that when we celebrate what you're doing.
Everybody give Trevor a round of applause.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So is it, it's Apollo.net, Apollo.com?
ApolloAutomation.com. It's kind of a mouthful.
Automation.com.
Yeah, ApolloAutomation.com. We are interested. We build home automation sensors right now for a more niche called Home Assistant, which is the software that runs it. But yeah, we're interested in hearing ideas. We, recently developed some custom sensors for a factory setting to monitor environmental characteristics throughout a factory to make sure that their equipment and raw material doesn't start corroding and degrading. Lots of things. Always open to hearing ideas of how we could help out and take Kentucky manufacturing and keep growing it here.
You want the folks on YouTube to know the Discord server name?
Yeah, more than welcome. It's on our website. There's a link. Our new website just launched like 2 days
nice.
ago.
Oh, wow,
So,
kudos.
we're very happy for that.
Looks very cool.
Thank you.
All right. Cool.
Can I be weird for a minute?
Go ahead.
Why stop now, Drew?
That's what I'm saying. Have you looked into the prepper market at all? I think the new term is homesteading. I think
Homesteading?
that's the new term. But there is a lot of money spent on self-sufficiency
Oh, yeah.
and home monitoring. And it's like, from a tech perspective, it's actually quite fascinating. Anyway, the people that I know that are in that space, money is not as much of an issue for them.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting because
For custom sensors, yeah.
yeah, the Home Assistant, which is the home automation platform that we work with, it's totally local. There's no cloud, there's
Yeah.
no big tech company. It's all inside of your own intranet. The outside world's internet can go off and your data is all still yours and it still works.
Yeah, that's
Very cool.
Yeah.
okay.
I can see that.
I can see a product line.
Yes.
There's a number of chicken door coops that need to be open.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Drew,
Hey,
what's going on with you?
so you guys had me on the show back in May,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm still doing the Black Investing Box.
Mhm.
Actually,
Nice.
sales
Yep.
took in all honesty, I haven't marketed it for 3 or 4 months because I'm focused right now. I'm bringing a John Maxwell leadership event to Lexington and to Georgetown.
Yes.
And so if you are starting a small team or you work at a corporation, for instance, and get me in touch with your HR department because I would love to have them send you to the conference. But it's a full day conference. It's my
John
first.
Maxwell's going to be there.
Well, to be fair, this is a sticking point. So John Maxwell licenses a full day. It's 8 speakers, and each of the speakers is like a $50,000 speaking fee.
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount of content. And I'm bringing in a guy from Canada who's an executive director for John Maxwell. So he's in the circle.
Okay.
So he'll be there for
One of his guys.
one of his guys. He'll be there for Q&A. He is independently very successful. He owns a significant piece of a gold mine. Like, that's not a euphemism.
Okay.
A real
Like
gold
shiny
mine.
dirt, shiny dirt. And oil, and he's been in real estate for ages. His wife has been a major player in the multi-level marketing thing. So anyway, very successful in lots of different categories. He himself is an international speaker. So he'll be there. That'll be exciting. And then I'll be speaking on this little system I call the culture scripting system, which is like, you can't find good help these days.
Mhm.
This solves that problem. That's what this does.
Really?
Yeah. So almost got into an argument with the guy. He was like, what's your magic trick? What can you do? And I was like, well, I can fix your culture in 90 days. I can completely transform your culture. And he was like, no, you can't. I was like, I don't know where to go with that.
Well, good luck with that
I wouldn't have said
then.
I understood that. So he kept getting like a little bit of, and I was like, maybe you're just bad at culture.
Right.
This is weirdest kind of thing.
Okay.
So I'm doing leadership coaching, and I have a startup community, like a book club. So it's like online. We'll do a book study once a week. I'm going to be launching launching 3 more communities here in January.
Nice.
Like different niches, but we're going to be going through this book called Business Made Simple is the one we're doing for startups. So like being a founder is extremely lonely. There's this old joke that the only person in the Navy who doesn't know what they're doing is the admiral, because everybody else is following orders. But when you're at the top, nobody's telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And that's very lone, like, you're in your second in command. They're like, what do you want to do? So
Yeah.
it's like, everybody's pretty much the same until you get to the lead guy
Mhm.
and that person. So we provide communities for that.
Nice.
We provide training, and then we provide like technical skills. I used to be a chief engineer at Lockheed Martin. I've done a bunch of things. I've led teams. So I know a couple of tricks on how to run a team, right? So we provide training, we provide actual help doing things, and we provide just inspiration. So the John Maxwell
Nice.
group or event is an inspiration event. We're talking about refresh your year in 2025, like the importance, like there's really cool science, like actual, not woo-woo science, like real science
Wow.
behind positivity and how having a
Mhm.
positive mindset opens you up to all sorts of positivity, like success. Because when your mind closes down, you're like, well, that won't work. Well, that won't work. And one of those would have worked,
Right.
right? And your team, like, how are you leading your team or are you not? Like, are you leading toward positivity where they can flourish, or are you becoming the bottleneck?
Yeah.
That's a hard one
Yeah.
for leaders.
Oh, yeah.
So-
Hard to admit that.
The culture scripting thing I think is fun. Do you guys want to do it real quick?
Sure.
Okay. So this one's called, do you guys want to
The
do
two
10?
introverts got really nervous.
And I'm like, hey, let's go run.
Yes. Okay. So do we want to do courage and recklessness, or do you guys want to do vampires suck?
What's the difference?
Well, they're different conversations.
Okay, let's go with vampires.
Vampires
Yeah.
suck. Okay. So everybody really quickly think through somebody that's been in your life, maybe a boss, maybe a peer, maybe a subordinate that's just a vampire on your emotions. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I feel
So
like we should not list these names.
so I always use Craig because I don't have a Craig in my life. So I always use Craig. So I have Jerry, Craig, and Sarah are the names that I always use, right?
Okay.
So I'm thinking of a guy named Craig, obviously not named Craig, okay? And what I noticed is immediately, every situation, every time you brought up anything, he was always super negative, right? So a red flag of a vampire is somebody that's always like not a productive devil's advocate, but just like, well, that's dumb, like was just grumpy and negative all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so what about you guys? The vampires you're thinking of now, what did they behave like? Any red
They go
flags?
from crisis to crisis. Everything's
Ooh.
always an immediate emergency in that moment. And even when you assuage that crisis, the next day or a day or two later, there's a new crisis.
Yeah, that's, yes, I love that.
Yeah, mine was similar, making mountains out of molehills, like
Yeah.
small disruptions that you can get over, or small problems that have a solution.
Mine is, it's like, you could say, well, you know what? There's like 100 pounds of gold under this floor. If we could just dig, well, we don't have a shovel.
Oh, always has an
Or-
excuse.
Yeah, that's just too hard to do. It's probably not real gold anyway. So it's always that they didn't, I mean, you could just hand it to them on a silver platter.
Like, but it's
And
heavy.
it was, yeah, but it's heavy. That platter's heavy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's the people that are always self-focused, because like I get joy out of helping other people, and people that always just want to take and never give back.
Yeah.
Like that's draining, and it is so dissimilar from what drives me that it's hard for me to even kind of follow.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Full agreement.
Yeah. George? You guys
Somebody
have
who
any-
never looks at the positive side of any situation. So it's kind of like you with the goal,
Yeah.
always negative.
Yeah, but we don't have a
And hey, but
shovel.
all this stuff is working good, and then I don't want to hear about it. It's always complaining, never a positive aspect of something that's right in their face.
Yeah. Okay, so I think the ones that we've missed are, you kind of talked about it, they're like preemptively excusing,
Yeah.
but they also miss deadlines. And there's
Oh, yeah.
always an excuse for missing the deadline. Am I right?
Mhm.
And so, like when I was running my team at Lockheed, I literally had a board, like a whiteboard on the wall. It was called the excuse board. And if you came up with an
Yeah.
excuse I'd never heard of before,
You
had to
made
write it
the
up on
board?
You had to write it up on the board. And my name was up there, and like we didn't put names, but it's handwriting. Everybody knows who's it.
Sure.
Yeah.
So like we're all up on there. HR came by, they were like, "What is that?" 'Cause it's just-
HR
I was like-
went ballistic.
And I was like, that's my excuse for it. I don't pay people to find excuses. I pay them to get work done. So anyway, HR made me take it down. So it's yeah, okay. So all right, so I think we've covered most of them. And this is the point. As a leader, what we're doing is we're negotiating identity. Because who here wants to be a vampire? None of us want to be a vampire. And we just talked about a lot of characteristics of a vampire, right? All right, so let's go to like the mythology of vampires. What do we know about vampires from the stories?
Silver kills them,
Silver kills them.
oak shavings are bad, sunlight's bad, they're OCD.
Gee.
You guys know that? Like most of the ways to stop a vampire, like you spill mustard seeds, they gotta count them all. I mean, there's like, yeah, every vampire had OCD.
It's a lot deeper than I was expecting. I can't find an analogy
What
for
you,
all
what
of these.
you did know, Drew, was that Leo is an expert on vampires
Yeah.
and just about everything
Yep.
else.
And they suck blood, they obviously.
They suck blood, right? So the big ones, right, are you kill them with a stake through the heart,
Mhm.
and they hate sunlight, right? And they can't see themselves in a mirror. And that's a huge one, right?
Yeah.
Because when you meet the vampires, like all the vampires we were thinking of, could they see that they were this way? No, they
No.
can't see it about themselves. There's always an excuse, right? So we've had this conversation. So like if you came to work for me, we'd have this conversation very early, within the first week or two that we work with me. I'd take you out for coffee and we'd have this conversation. And we might stem into zombies, and we might stem into werewolves, and we might stem into other creatures, right? But at the end of the day, we don't want to be these people, right? So at work, that means we need to be transparent with each other, right? And we need to have our workers there needs to be transparency in the work. That's light, that's sunlight, right? And I'm going to stake you to the wall with a delivery, a discrete due date and a discrete delivery, right?
Mhm.
Right. And then so like, and it happens. We all have down times, like our dog dies, or mom and dad came to visit, just things that, ruin the day. Sorry. So, stuff happens. So somebody like comes in and they kind of drag in and you're like, hey man, I feel like you're being a vampire today. What do you think? And you're like, well, and you tell me why. We have a dialogue about it. We solve it. And then you're welcomed back into the crew. All I'm doing is holding up a mirror to you and saying, you are not being what you and I agreed that we should be. This is what we are here, right? So there's all sorts of areas that we do that in culture. And if as leaders, like who here has had a leader that they like made fun of? Like the guy, I had this one guy, and he'd come to my desk every morning. He'd walk up to me and he'd go, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, and he'd tap the desk just like that. He goes, good morning. Just like that. Just like that. Every morning, 5 things, and good morning. So we make fun of him for it, right?
Right.
As a leader, you're always being made fun of for some tick, some quirk that you have, right? We make fun of each other. What if we scripted those? So people are like, oh, he's talking about vampire sucks again. I am, but you are too. Just like Cardi B, right?
Mhm.
It's publicity for the culture that we want. So that's culture scripting, and that's one of the things that I help people do.
Very cool.
Interesting.
Very
Yeah.
neat.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So if they want to go to this conference,
They want to go to the conference, go check it out at drewsuttonleadership.com, and then you can chase it and you'll find it. It's
Cool.
very obvious. It's like the first quarter of the page. Also, if you want a discount, I can't remember, I think I gave you a 30% discount.
Yes, what was the discount? I thought I had that pulled up.
So if you want an individual ticket, I think there's a 30% discount, and the code is invent30.
Invent 30.
And if you want to buy a table, which is for 8 people, you also get like logos at the event and a bunch of really cool stuff for your company. So that would be invent20.
Invent 20.
The tables are already discounted, so like I'm running into a cost wall, if you will.
Cool.
So we'd love to have you come. If money's an issue, get with Don, get with me. There should not be a reason this is an issue. But yeah, bring your team. So the big thing I'm trying to is let's inspire, let's connect, and let's apply. Let's inspire, connect, and apply. So we're going to inspire you with literally world-class leaders. We'll do 2 leaders, and then we'll just have a tabletop discussion. You and your 8 people are going to chat about what you thought. Because we've all been to that conference and like, well, what did we talk about? Like, I can't, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a change in your life. I want it to change.
Oh, yeah.
And then you'll make applications and you'll take it home with you. And then plus, I'll invite you into the community. There's a Spotlight Leadership community, and you can connect with people there too. So
Fantastic.
That's the event.
Very cool.
Cool. Drew Sutton Leadership.
DrewSuttonLeadership.com. Yep.
All right. Well, Kelly, tell us about Beowulf.
We do product testing, so it goes back to a decade as an analytical chemist. So it's kind of circling back to that. And so we do the material science, the chemistry, the things like that, but we do have other capabilities too. So like acoustics labs, electromagnetic waves in or out from your products, life testing, environmental testing. We are working on adding software end user testing. So as a software developer, I'm not looking to do some of the other tests, the ADA compliance and things like that, but more end user testing. So getting that perspective from people who are actually going to use it and don't have software experience, because they're going to make it fail in the way that the rest of the population is going to make it fail. So that's a lot of it. I don't know that my partner appreciates it, but I always say that I'm kind of the nerd interpreter, because I think that's what I do in a lot of various aspects, because most people are not analytical chemists. If I start throwing out all the acronyms, it's not going to help anybody. So for us, we're trying to help companies that need their products tested understand what tests they need, get them those tests, and then help them understand the results and the next steps.
There's a lot of companies, especially startups out there, that they don't know what they don't know.
Right. Yeah. And particularly in regulated fields, if you're going on airplanes, if you're going to ship it overseas, if you're going different things, if you're going to be in government buildings, there's different regulations. So helping understand those, getting the right tests, getting them passed. One of our bigger things is we've got some big environmental chambers that are necessary for tests over in Europe. So ours are certified to do the testing, but they're cheaper than the main regulatory body. So while it's still expensive to get tests done, it's cheaper to get them done with a more localized lab first, and then go to the regulatory body once you know you're going to pass on the first try. So that's another area where we can try to help out.
Cool. And if they want to find out more, where do they go?
BeowulfTesting.com.
BeowulfTesting.com.
How do you spell that?
BeowulfTesting.com. Yeah.
BeowulfTesting.com. Cool.
But wolf is spelled like the animal.
Like the animal. Very cool. All right. Well, guys, any final thoughts on anything?
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays. Yeah, I need to.
Thanks you guys for joining us. This was fantastic. Everybody give them a hand. Everybody collectively, which is also means.
Well, my timing was off on that. Okay, now we got to go on. How do we turn it off?
Just pull the battery out.
Pull the battery.
It goes for like 20 seconds. But it's a long 20 seconds. Like that scenario.
I thought, I know, I'll run this, and then Leo started talking. And I'm like, oh no, bad timing. Yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody. Stay tuned for next month. Watch your email inboxes if you are not getting any emails from us. Number one, check your junk folder if you're on a list. If you're not on a list, go to kyinventors.org and sign up, because you'll miss out if you don't. So, anything else from Trevor, Drew, or Kelly? All right.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. Everybody have a great weekend, and